What's solidarity?
Solidarity is the universal helping of each other.
Basically, being united with everybody, caring for everybody else.
What can you do to practice solidarity?
Treat everyone equally, work as a group, and have sympathy.
To practice solidarity, you need to be respectful to others, disregarding whatever differences you may have between them. Just treat everyone the same way that you would treat someone that's just like you. That's how you would practice solidarity.
So I'm Giovanni Crisan. I'm with Donor Services of Food for the Poor, and what I do is I am actually the voice of Food for the Poor. Anybody who calls in, I am the person that they would speak with over the phone, and that can be for anything from making a donation to asking general questions about the organization, changing address, anything like that. So
What are the missions for Food for the Poor?
okay, so our mission is to join the Church of the Third World with the Church of the First World, and basically fulfill the materially poor and the spiritually poor. In simple terms, that's what our mission is. So primarily we are a ministry, and even though we are helping to feed the poor and help the poor in both material ways and spiritual ways, spiritual aid is really our main focus. We're trying to build a bond between the poor and the church as they know it, with our understanding of church and faith.
So how does Catholic social teaching come into the solidarity role of Food for the Poor?
Absolutely does. Our organization, because our mission is to join the Church of the Third World with the Church of the First World, we are trying to build a bond, a community with those we help. So we're not just going in there providing food or shelter or water and then leaving. We're trying to create a bond with the people that we assist, and in a holistic way. We're helping them both with food, shelter. We're helping to educate them, to help them to help themselves by either through microenterprise, where they can create a business for themselves that helps them get out of poverty or stay out of poverty, and of course in the spiritual sense, where we help them learn the Word of God and understand that it is through God that they will find salvation.
In what ways do you think that some students can follow solidarity from Food for the Poor?
Oh, well, definitely by following the examples that have been set over the 37 years that we've been operating. We assist the poor. We also assist each other within the organization. Students can do so as well. They can join together and help with something like packing meals for the poor, which we do packing events. We have one coming up. And volunteering, we do mission trips as well, which is a really, really rewarding experience that everybody should do, where you can actually see and do hands-on. You can touch, smell, and hear everything in person, and see how these people live, and how you can help in just so many ways. Every little bit can make such a big difference in the lives of the poor. So in these ways, definitely working together, it builds bonds, not only between you and the poor that you're helping, but also everybody who goes on these volunteer missions or on mission trips. You build bonds with everybody else who's there, and it builds this solidarity spiritually, emotionally, and of course physically.
Solidarity and Catholicism. The word Catholic in itself means universal, and the Catholic Church is universal in two ways. Firstly, she is universal in that Christ is present in all of her ways and everything Catholics do, and will always remain so. Secondly, she has been sent on a mission to save the entirety of the human race, not just those who believe in Catholicism. All humans are interconnected because they are made in God's image. There is a bond of interdependencies between individuals and groups that extends past race, religion, and social class. The United States Conference of Catholic Bishops, or the USCCB, states that we are all one human family, whatever our national, racial, ethnic, economic, and ideological differences. We are all our brother's keepers, whatever they may be.
Often, immigrants are perceived by those in developed countries as a threat to high levels of well-being of that country. However, immigrants often support the economies of the country to which they migrate. The U.S. Catholic bishops wrote in the Catholic Action, "We believe in an affirmative immigration policy for America, one which will welcome, without racial, national, religious, or other discriminations, those who seek to immigrate and become part of our national life. One which will provide the ever-new lifeblood which America needs, and by which, throughout its history, it has been enriched. One which will assure to new immigrants the basic rights guaranteed to its citizens, and will welcome permanent residents into citizenship. One which will express America's active concern to cooperate with other nations in providing a fair share of resettlement opportunities in the USA, as well as in other countries for those oppressed for freedom's sake."
Solidarity among immigrants in the Catholic perspective rests on four basic ideas. 1. People have the right to emigrate. 2. Nations have the right to place reasonable limits and laws on immigration. 3. Each person has a duty and an obligation to follow just laws. 4. Catholics have a responsibility to provide for the basic needs of all people, regardless of their legal status.
The Civil Rights Movement was an event that occurred in the 1950s throughout the 1960s. The goals of this movement was to grant freedom to African Americans. At this point of time, many African Americans struggled for the opportunities of employment, education and housing, and the right to vote and equal access to public facilities. When this movement was occurring, many people in the favor of the African Americans due to how they went about getting their point across. When they went about protesting, they showed solidarity throughout their marching. They found that it was necessary to fight for their rights of racial equality. The Black Lives Matter movement. The Black Lives Matter movement is an international activist movement originating in the African American community that campaigns against violence and systematic racism towards Black people. The people in the Black Lives Matter movement have come together to show people in America that innocent, unarmed Black members in society should not be killed by people in authority. This movement is a beautiful thing due to the fact that they have come together and have impacted the community in taking part in many silent protests and marches throughout the country.
The March for Our Life was a statement against the government and their laws and regulations when it comes to gun violence and gun control. In 2018, we had one of the most biggest mass shootings in school to ever take place in history. Many people died, and they only died because our gun laws and regulations don't meet our country's needs. They marched for their lives to protest about gun violence and gun regulation and how it needs to be regulated before more people get hurt and before more mass shootings take place. Is Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals. It is an immigration policy that lets some people who were brought illegally to the U.S. as children to receive a renewable 2-year deferred deportation action and to become eligible for a work permit in the U.S. People were standing up to the fact that when you're young, one doesn't get much say on what you get to do, and the fact that they get punished for being brought into the U.S. when they were little and now having to be deported now is wrong.
In doing this project, I learned so much about solidarity. For instance, when I went to Food for the Poor to do the interview, I realized that they were more than just a group of people that came together to feed the poor. They had a mission. They're more about rebuilding the community around them and going out and above and beyond for the people that they serve. And I also learned that solidarity comes together and brings people together to focus on one thing at a time and show people like what it means to be together and make a change in the world. So that's what solidarity has taught me in this project.
I learned through this project the respect and interconnectedness throughout all people that is solidarity. And I learned that only through solidarity can the human race really come together and learn to respect each other, because discrimination is such a big issue in the world today, and solidarity is our biggest fighting force against discrimination.
Doing this video on solidarity allowed me to reflect on moments of solidarity throughout history, such as the Civil Rights Movement and the recent March for Our Lives, and it made me reevaluate how lucky we are that we live in a society nowadays that takes charge and stands up for what they believe in, and one that cares so much about each other that it doesn't matter what our background is, we have grown from being small-minded into realizing that we are all one and the same.
After this video project, I believe that solidarity is important because it's a way to express patience, empathy, compassion, and also determination, because it's a way of tolerance. You accept people for who they are and their differences, and you don't judge them on that. I believe it's spreading positivity and peace and kindness all over the world and not hate. Today, people show compassion every day, and especially like after what happened in Parkland or many other incidents like that, people come together, and that's what compassion is all about, helping people cope with their...
To consideration the humans and how they're made in God's image with the USCCB states and the current issues in the United States. Since doing this project, I've realized that in this time there aren't many acts of solidarity, but if we continue to push for what's right, we could create more and create an impact in our community.